The great question. Did you know that some of the most brilliant minds in history, visionaries who saw further than their peers, who dreamed beyond the horizon, never finished the books they started, abandoned their inventions halfway, or quietly withdrew from the very revolutions they helped ignite? Imagine this. You're lying in bed at 2 a.m., the glow of your phone screen lighting up your face. You just watched a video of someone your age building empires, composing symphonies, launching startups. You feel that familiar ache in your chest, not jealousy, not exactly. It's something more shameful. You know you could do something great. You've felt it for years. You've had the ideas, the spark, the urge to build, to lead, to leave a mark. But still, you're here, passive, motionless, waiting. And so, once again, you whisper the lie that tastes so sweet on your tongue. I'll start tomorrow. But deep down, you feel the rot. How is it possible to want so much, yet do so little? How can a person be filled with grand dreams, but remain trapped in the inertia of inaction? You crave significance. You feel the pull of purpose. And yet, even the simplest tasks, writing that page, making that call, getting out of bed, become Herculean. This is the paradox. You are ambitious, but you are also lazy. And you are not alone. There is something deeply unsettling about this contradiction. We often think of ambition and laziness as opposites, like fire and ice. One drives us forward, the other holds us back. But what if they're not enemies? What if they're siblings born from the same existential longing, twisted in different directions? What if ambition isn't the antidote to laziness, but its mask? You scroll endlessly through productivity hacks and motivational quotes, all of which promise to fix you, but nothing sticks. You begin to wonder, is something wrong with me? Why do I have the will to dream, but not the will to move? Maybe it's not willpower you lack. Maybe it's meaning. You were told your potential is a gift, but a gift without direction is a curse. It haunts you because potential demands proof. And until it's proven, until you've done something, you're just another soul wandering the gray space between promise and regret. There's a name for that space, a psychological purgatory. It's the inner void where the ambitious but lazy live, where the soul knows it was meant for more, but the body remains still. Like a lion raised in a cage, pacing back and forth, not for lack of strength, but because the door was never open long enough to teach it what freedom feels like. So ask yourself, what if your laziness isn't laziness at all? What if it's grief for a version of you that's slipping away day by day? What if your ambition is a scream from your unconscious, a desperate call from the parts of you that still believe in magic, but have lost faith in time? What if society has programmed you to dream big, but trained you to feel small? And most terrifying of all, what if you never break free? But here's the twist. You're not uniquely broken. You're not some lazy failure surrounded by better people. This conflict is human, ancient, philosophical, and beneath it lies a story as old as civilization itself, a story of tension, identity, and the war between will and fear. This is not just about procrastination. It's about a hidden fracture in the modern soul. And to understand it, we have to go deeper beyond productivity advice, beyond surface-level psychology, into the darker waters of philosophy, history, and the unconscious mind. Because only by facing the truth, however uncomfortable, can we begin to reclaim what was lost. So now we ask, why does this conflict exist at all? What invisible hand pushes ambitious minds into paralyzed silence? What ancient shadow lives in your laziness? And what if this struggle isn't a flaw to fix, but a signal to decode? Let's go there. The hidden problem and its psychological, philosophical roots. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast forest, knowing there's something extraordinary on the other side: your dreams, your purpose, your fully realized self. And yet, every time you take a step forward, something pulls you back. You're not shackled by chains, but by something more subtle: doubt, fear, resistance. You don't collapse, you drift. So the question becomes, What is this invisible force that traps the ambitious but keeps them motionless? To understand it, we must go deeper into the fractured architecture of the modern self. Carl Jung once wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." Now extend that beyond the family. Think bigger. Society itself is the parent, and you are the child raised on dreams not meant for you. In childhood, you were told, you can be anything. You're special. You're destined for greatness. But when you looked around at the adult world, you saw a different story. Dead-eyed workers, fractured relationships, meaningless routines. The dissonance planted a seed. You internalized a paradox. I must be exceptional, but the world is soul, crushingly ordinary. This is the origin of your ambition, and also your paralysis. Because how do you reconcile the desire to be extraordinary with the fear that nothing you do will matter? Nietzsche called it the abyss, the unbearable tension between our highest ideals and the chaos of reality. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he introduced the idea of the Übermensch not as a superior being, but as one who creates meaning in a meaningless world. But meaning is not given. It is forged. And forging anything requires suffering. Here lies the uncomfortable truth. Ambition is painful. It forces you to confront the gap between who you are and who you could become. It makes you aware of the choices you haven't made, the time you've wasted, the life unlived. And so, your mind invents a defense mechanism: inaction. Because inaction is safe. You can't fail if you never begin. You can't be judged if you never expose your work. You can't lose what you never risk. Arthur Schopenhauer believed that suffering is the essence of existence. We want, and therefore we suffer. And when we suffer, we retreat. This is why laziness, real or perceived, feels so heavy. It's not mere apathy. It's a psychological withdrawal from a world that has become too overwhelming to engage with. But there's more. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that we are condemned to be free. That is, we are thrust into a world without inherent meaning, and we must invent purpose from nothing. This freedom, paradoxically, can be paralyzing. Every choice feels infinite, every path unchosen, a quiet death. So, you sit still not because you don't care, but because you care too much. Ambition makes life matter. And when life matters, every moment of inaction becomes a tragedy. This is the root of the ambitious but lazy syndrome. It's not that you're lazy. It's that your mind has erected a wall between desire and action, one built out of existential fear. Let's add another layer. In Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, he observed that those who survived the horrors of concentration camps weren't necessarily the strongest or smartest, but those who had a sense of purpose, however faint. Without purpose, the human spirit decays. And today, in the modern world, many of us are suffering a quiet spiritual famine. You were told to follow your dreams, but never shown how to find them. You were encouraged to be yourself, but never taught who that self is. So you float, drifting between dopamine hits and deadlines, never quite landing anywhere real. Even Aldous Huxley saw it coming. In Brave New World, he warned of a society not oppressed by fear, but sedated by pleasure. The modern human isn't chained, they're numbed. Procrastination becomes a symptom of a deeper condition, a culture that has made comfort the highest virtue, and suffering the ultimate sin. But ambition requires discomfort. Growth demands friction. And yet, everything around you is designed to eliminate pain notifications, fast food, porn, scrolling. Your environment whispers, why struggle? Why suffer? Just stay here, warm and numb. So how do you rebel against that? First, by understanding this. Your struggle isn't unique, but it is sacred. It's a signal, not of laziness, but of potential unclaimed. Not of weakness, but of meaning yet to be forged. You feel torn because you are. Your soul wants more, but your psyche is exhausted by the weight of a world that demands everything and gives nothing. So, before you judge yourself, pause. Because your inaction is not your identity. It's a symptom, a protective response to an unbearable tension. the desire to do something great, and the fear that you never will. But this tension has a purpose. It can break you, or it can awaken you. And that leads us to the next revelation, because this isn't just a personal struggle. It's a cultural epidemic, with unseen consequences shaping how we live, love, and dream. Let's peel back another layer. The unseen consequences. You wake up with a strange heaviness, not physical, but metaphysical. A kind of spiritual jet lag. You're not tired from doing too much. You're tired from doing nothing that matters. Days blur together. Tasks half finished. Promises made only to yourself. Broken in silence. And still this gnawing feeling that something is wrong, but you can't name it. That is the unseen consequence. Not failure. Erosion. Slow. Invisible. Soul deep. You don't collapse in one dramatic moment. You decay over time. And the world around you, the world that tells you to hustle and grind, doesn't notice. Because it's decaying too. Let's go deeper. The modern system doesn't want you to be fully alive. It wants you to be functional, predictable, endlessly hungry. Not for meaning, but for products. Capitalism doesn't need you to fulfill your potential. It needs you to stay dissatisfied just enough to buy your next escape. So when you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," you're not just procrastinating. You're participating in a larger design. Because here's the truth. The system profits from your paralysis. Think about it. If you chased your true calling, would you still scroll for hours through curated lives? If you created something meaningful, would you care about follower counts? If you built your own internal compass, would you need constant validation? Number. But instead, you are fed distractions dressed as purpose. The illusion of progress, streaks, likes, deadlines. You check off boxes while your real dreams collect dust. And the worst part? You feel complicit. Because part of you knows exactly what's happening, but you let it happen anyway. That quiet guilt you carry? It's not because you're lazy. It's because you're aware. Aware that you were made for something more, but unable to escape the gravity of the machine. This is where psychology sharpens the blade. Enter the present bias. It's a cognitive glitch wired into your brain. The present moment feels more real, more urgent than the future. So the reward of doing nothing now outweighs the imagined reward of doing something meaningful later. Your brain isn't broken, it's behaving exactly as it evolved to. Survival over self-actualization. Now combine that with choice paralysis. When everything is possible, nothing feels right. You have too many options. Write a book, start a business, move cities, change careers. So you scroll instead. You do what's easy. You choose certainty, even if it's soul-numbing. Not because it's good, but because it's known. And here lies the most tragic consequence. You become a ghost in your own life. A passive observer, watching time pass, watching others live. Not out of envy, but out of fear that you're fading. And the longer you stay stuck, the more your identity begins to warp. You start calling yourself lazy, not as a behavior, but as a belief. You forget that it's a state, not a sentence. This isn't just emotional, it's neurological. Every time you avoid doing what matters, you reinforce a neural loop. Avoidance equals safety. Effort equals danger. So the gap between wanting and doing doesn't just feel bigger, it becomes bigger. Your brain begins to associate ambition with anxiety. Now add in dopamine hijacking. Your phone, your apps, your notifications, each one designed to mimic the rush of real accomplishment without the substance. It's spiritual junk food. It fills you up with nothing. And the more you consume, the more starved you feel. This is why the ambitious but lazy spiral feels so heavy, because you're not just avoiding tasks, you're starving your soul. You're drowning in cheap stimulation, while your real self suffocates beneath the surface. And the world doesn't help. School taught you how to obey, not how to create. Work demands performance, not purpose. Social media rewards surface, not substance. So what happens? You shrink. Not dramatically, quietly, incrementally. You begin to expect less of yourself. You stop trying new things. You let go of your curiosity. You replace wonder with worry. And the voice inside, the one that once roared with dreams, becomes a whisper you can barely hear. This is the true cost. Not missed deadlines, not forgotten goals, but the slow, silent death of your inner fire. And here's the final twist. You think you're alone in this. But look around. This is the new pandemic. People with minds that burn bright, but bodies that never move. Souls that ache to create, but are addicted to escape. A generation raised on ambition, paralyzed by fear, sedated by comfort. But what if this isn't the end? What if your stuckness is not a weakness, but a revolt against a system that never taught you how to live? What if your dissatisfaction is the seed of your awakening? What if this quiet decay can be reversed, not through hustle, but through something radically different, something rebellious, something sacred, something that changes everything? Because if you're still here, still feeling this, then you haven't given up. You're just waiting for something real. And now, it's time to fight back. The rebellion, how to break free. Imagine this. You're sitting in a room filled with mirrors, but none of them reflect who you are. One shows who your parents wanted you to be, another your school, your boss, your culture, your peers. Everywhere you look, someone else's expectation stares back. And in the center of that room, beneath the noise, beneath the shame, beneath the ambition, sits the real you, silent, watching, waiting. This is where the rebellion begins. Because what if the problem wasn't you? What if it was the frame, the very structure you've been operating within? You were taught to measure your worth by output, by grind, by metrics. You were told to chase productivity like it was salvation. But that system was never built to free you. It was built to extract you, to wring you out. And now, it's time to burn it down. Let's start with a dangerous truth. You don't need more motivation. You need a philosophical awakening. The system wants you to believe your laziness is the enemy. But maybe laziness is a protest, a quiet refusal to engage with a life that feels hollow, a soul saying, I will not move until it means something. This isn't self-help. This is war. You're not lazy. You're misaligned. So, how do you realign? Step 1. Stop trying to fix yourself. You're not broken. You're buried. Beneath layers of shame, performance, people-pleasing, your rebellion starts when you reject the lie that your worth is tied to your productivity, that your value is earned through burnout, that your dreams must come with a business plan. Step 2. Create for no one but yourself. Nietzsche spoke of the will to power, the drive to impose order on chaos, to express your deepest self into the world. But it's not about dominance. It's about expression. To write, build, move, speak not because someone else will approve, but because you must, because it's the only way to feel alive again. So make something, anything, and make it badly. Make it without posting it, without monetizing it, without optimizing it for algorithms. Because when you create with no audience, you finally meet the part of you that's been starved of attention, the real self. Step 3. Shift from outcome to identity. Ask not, how do I become productive? Ask, who would I be if I were no longer afraid? Because action isn't just about willpower. It's about identity. If you still see yourself as lazy, you'll find ways to prove it true. But if you begin to see yourself even tentatively as an artist, a builder, a creator, you will act to stay congruent with that vision. That's not toxic positivity. That's neuroplasticity. The brain rewires based on repeated identity-aligned behavior. The trick is to act before you believe it, not with force, but with small, sacred rebellion. Step 4. Reclaim boredom. The world has trained you to fear stillness, but the truth is, the most powerful insights, the soul-rattling realizations come in silence. Viktor Frankl survived the camps not by escaping suffering, but by finding meaning within it. And meaning does not scream. It whispers. It arrives when you unplug, when you sit with your discomfort, when you stop numbing long enough to hear your inner voice again. So take a walk without your phone. Let your thoughts wander. Don't chase productivity, chase presence, because presence is where the sacred lives. Step 5. Make peace with the void. Ambition without action often feels like hell because we resist the uncertainty between desire and achievement. But that space, that void, is where transformation happens. It's not empty, it's a forge, and only those willing to step into it come out reborn. Jung called this the process of individuation, becoming whole by integrating the shadow, the parts of us we repress, including laziness, including fear. The goal is not to eliminate these parts, but to understand their purpose. Ask yourself, what is my laziness protecting me from? Fear of failure? Fear of success? Fear of judgment? What if the part of you that doesn't act is actually trying to keep you safe? Now, thank it and tell it, we're safe now, but we're moving anyway. Finally, build a sacred routine, not a productivity schedule, a ritual, something that grounds you, a time to write, a space to think, a small daily act that says, I am alive, I am here, I am doing the work. Even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's just sitting with a blank page. Because the truth is, the rebellion isn't loud, it's quiet, patient, relentless. And it doesn't start with a 5 a.m. grind or a vision board. It starts the moment you decide to stop running from yourself. So now you know, this isn't about doing more. It's about doing differently. Less shame, more meaning, less noise, more truth. The rebellion begins when you reclaim your time, your mind, your voice. But the most powerful moment? That comes next. Because beneath all of this, beneath the struggle, the tension, the fire, there's one final truth. One realization that changes everything. The ultimate truth. The final, most powerful realization. Imagine waking up not from sleep, but from a life you didn't realize you were sleepwalking through. The noise is still there, the expectations, the distractions, but something's changed. The center of gravity has shifted. For the first time, you are no longer orbiting around fear, performance, or approval. You are orbiting around truth. And the truth is this: you were never lazy. You were grieving the distance between your potential and your reality, grieving the weight of expectations you never chose, grieving the soul you buried beneath who you thought you had to be. That grief disguised itself as procrastination, as apathy, as failure. But it was never about effort. It was always about identity. And here is the final paradox. The pain you feel is not proof of your brokenness. It's proof that something sacred within you is still alive. That ache you carry, that quiet restlessness that won't let you go numb forever, that's your soul refusing to die quietly. That's your deeper self, clawing its way back through the layers of distraction, doubt, and despair. You are not fighting laziness. You are fighting spiritual amnesia. The world taught you to forget who you are, to chase shadows instead of substance, to confuse ambition with achievement. But deep within you, there is a memory, a knowing, a center that remembers who you were before the world told you what to become. And that self, that ancient self, is not lazy. It is still, because it is waiting for you to stop running, to stop performing, to stop trying to fix yourself long enough to remember. Because here is the ultimate truth. You do not need to become something. You need to return to something. Return to curiosity. Return to presence. Return to the quiet joy of doing something for no other reason than it feels like truth. When you were a child, you didn't need motivation to create. You didn't ask if it was good enough. You just did. You danced badly. You drew messy pictures. You spoke nonsense poems to the wind. And in that freedom before shame, before pressure, you touched something holy. That is not gone. It's buried under years of trying to be impressive instead of whole. So what if your ambition isn't the call to rise above others, but the call to return to yourself? What if the goal isn't to do more, but to do what only you can do. Not the optimized version of you, not the algorithm-friendly version, but the version that lives in the gaps, in the stillness, in the fire, the part of you that feels most true. And yes, it will hurt. Reclaiming your voice will burn. It will unravel everything false. Because truth is not a comfort, it is a confrontation. But there is no other way. This is not a journey to become more productive. It is a death and a rebirth. The death of the obedient self. The death of the scrolling self. The death of the one who waited for permission. And the rebirth of the sovereign self. The sacred self. The self that says, I don't need to prove anything. I just need to begin. So begin. Not because it will be perfect. Not because you feel ready. Begin because your life depends on it. Because every moment you delay is a moment you drift further from the reason you were born. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the guilt. Let go of the myth that your value lies in your output. And remember this. You are not here to be efficient. You are here to be awake, to feel, to question, to create, to burn. The world needs less noise, less hustle, less performance. The world needs souls on fire, souls who remember what it means to live from the inside out. And that can be you. It is you, if you choose. So stand up, step forward, begin, even if your hands shake, and whisper to yourself what no one else ever taught you. I am not lazy. I am awakening.